Committee meeting. Staff, if you can please call the roll so that we can establish a quorum.
At this time, I'm only asking those TAC members attending in person to respond by saying here when I call your name. I want to remind you to unmute your microphones by pushing the button on the base prior to responding. Alternates, please also state your name if you are attending on behalf of a TAC representative. Jim Bell,
Here.
Naresh Varapu,
I think Kwan is on behalf of him, his alternate member. Thank you.
Amanda Radigan, Jason Kaufman,
Here.
Denise Malone,
Here.
Jamie Brown, Terrence Bailey, John Paul O'Connor, Alex Hansen,
Here.
Jessica Keller, Kenny Wilson,
Here.
Michael Giambrone is excused, Brian Davis,
Present.
Josh Nagel,
Here.
Aaron Hoffman is excused, Joyce Kai, Lorraine Cargill, Thomas Hernandez,
Here.
Anders Vian,
Here.
Kim Delaney, Kim Glass Castro, Christopher Marsh,
Here.
Jonathan Rainsvold,
Here.
Cesar Martinez, Natalie Crowley,
Here.
Mo Alturk is excused. Oh, I'm sorry, Melissa Ackert.
I'm here, Melissa Ackert from Turk.
Thank you. We have a quorum.
Thank you, staff. And just for the record, Jamie Brown came in right after, so if you could please note his attendance.
Thank you.
All right, staff, are there any other modifications to the agenda?
No, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you. We are moving on to agenda item 1C, motion to approve the minutes for April 3rd, 2024. Are there any changes to the minutes? All right, seeing none. If not, may I have a motion to adopt the minutes as presented?
So moved.
All right, I have a motion by Denise Malone, second. Second by Brian. All in favor, say aye. All
Aye.
opposed, say nay. Motion carries. Item 1D, general public comments, public comments on the agenda. Instructions on how to provide public comments are included in the agenda. Staff, are there any general comments?
Yes, Madam Chair. Khurshid Mo Yadin, please step to the podium. Please use your microphone.
Yes. Good morning, Khurshid.
Khurshid Mohyeddin with the Planning Division. Is there any interest in moving this meeting to 9:30? That's all.
Yes. So, is that a general question? So, Khurshid, I think that Terrence Bailey's response accurately reflects the discussion and action that this board took. There were certain members of the board that brought that item up, but based on the vote that occurred, it was not passed. So that at least is the historical account last year. Are there any other comments? Okay, so then we are moving on to agenda item 1E, comments from the chair and other member comments. I have no comments this morning. Do any other board members have any comments?
Yes.
Yes, Terrence.
I think it's obvious that if more than 30% of the membership is late every meeting, 9 o'clock is not the right start time. That's all.
Thank you for your comments, Terrence. Are there any other board member comments? No. All right. Seeing none, moving on. The TAC liaison report. At this time, I'd like to invite Nathan George to provide an update. Staff. Nathan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning, everybody. Just a moment to get this pulled up on the screen. We have a pretty packed agenda, so I'm going to try and keep this brief. So I'll just hit a few highlights for everybody, and then we can move on through our very busy agenda. So we do want to highlight for everybody that the month of May is National Bike Month. It's a very exciting time to celebrate bicycling. We do celebrate things a little bit differently here in the state of Florida with the Florida Bike Month. So just want to encourage everybody to be aware that that is ongoing and look for events and opportunities to engage in the national celebration of bicycling across the month. Quick highlight for you, National Bike to School Day is May 8th, and encourage everybody to participate in that event. Reminder for everybody, the bicycle friendly designations is another opportunity to showcase bicycling in our region. I encourage everybody to stay abreast of that at the bikeleague.org website. And just a few other reminders. Let's Get on the Bus Challenge. Want to highlight for everybody that we do have an event upcoming. So if you are interested in participating, take a look at that. And then the rest of the items are in your backup. They'll be posted on the website. So feel free to peruse that and check in with staff if you have any questions. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Nathan. Are there any comments on this item from the public?
No, Madam Chair.
Okay, do any committee members have any comments on the liaison report? Okay, we'll move on. That brings us to action items. Item 2A, motion to recommend adoption of the fiscal year 2025-2026 Unified Planning Work Program. So at this time, I'd like to invite Andrew Euler to come to the podium to present this item.
Real quick, I forgot to mention, for those of you who have a blue bag at your table, we left out goodie bags. This is something that we did last year for all of our members, and for our new members, just wanted to highlight for you. We have some reusable water bottles there that you can use, and also some materials about TPA. So just that's what those are there for. If anybody else needs one of those goodie bags, please contact me and I'll be sure to get that to you. Thanks.
Thank you, Nathan.
Give me some time
Morning,
to
Andrew.
get ready here. Good morning, everyone. So this is actually going to be the second reading, second draft of the Unified Planning Work Program upcoming for fiscal year 25 and 26. It was seen by committees and board last meeting. It will be seen this meeting and these committees, and then adopted by the governing board this month. I do have a summary slide here that goes through just high level, like what has changed since the first review. I'll start with this, and then if you'd like me to go into the whole detailed presentation again, I can do that, or we can move on to a vote. So first is, it's part of the appendices now, but we incorporated the FHWA and FDOT comments we received. So those are incorporated into the document, and we answered their questions. Next is we had an updated amount for the Commission for Transportation Disadvantage. This is the TPA's administrative oversight of the local coordinating board for Palm Tran. And so we got the final actual number for that for next year. So it's small adjustment, 54,000 to 56,000. We changed the amount that's being reobligated. So we have money that gets carried over from prior years. We anticipated 166,000 before. It's at 250,000 now in there, and that's mostly spread throughout where that's going to be provided. And then also with that is additional funds, which is our surface transportation funding program. That could be used towards products and planning activities. We actually reduced that amount a little bit because we have more planning funds coming in. So that number went from $3.9 million total in the 2 years to 3.86. And then the last item we did was, where possible, we rounded the budget items to be rounded to the tenths or hundredths place instead of specific digits. This makes it a little easier to read. Most of the totals, all the way for what's being spent on activities, is the same or very near the same, but it just makes it easier for reading. If you'd like, I can go through the entire presentation, or I can stop there.
What is the will of everybody? Are there any members who wish to have the full presentation at this point in time from Andrew? Okay, seeing none, I think that does it, Andrew. So at this time, I need a motion to approve this item. And then I can open up the floor for discussion. All right, motion by Terrence, discussion.
Second.
Yes. Oh, thank you. Thank you for seconding the motion. So Denise by second, or second by Denise, excuse me.
Oh, no, we didn't.
Any discussion? Okay. I have a motion by Terrence, second by Denise. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. Motion carries unanimously. All right, that concludes our action item. So now we are moving on to information items. We're on item 3A, the Turnpike crossover in Martin County. Oh, sorry, Nathan.
Just been informed that Turnpike's a little delayed arriving, so if we could advance item 3B, that would be fantastic.
Okay, staff, do we need an official motion to actually reorder this, or can we just move on and then come back to 3A? If,
I think it's up to you. It's all informational items. I think it's fine if you wanted to.
yeah, okay, so we will hold off until Turnpike gets here, and so we'll move on and to item 3B, which is the draft fiscal year transportation improvement program. So at this time, Andrew, you're already up there. Can you please present this item?
Hey, thank you, Madam Chair. So this is an exciting time. This is our first reading of the Transportation Improvement Program for fiscal years 25 through 29. So just like the UPWP, you'll see this this month. And it's not all the details of the products are in there. All the finances are, but not all the details of the products. So they'll still be updated a little bit. And you'll see a final reading next month. So the Transportation Improvement Program, what is it? It's our 5-year funding of federal and state funds towards transportation projects in Palm Beach County. Right now, we're operating under the current fiscal year 2024. So the upcoming 5 years is 25 through 29. And then that outer years past that would be outside of 2029. And so you all are pretty familiar with how products get produced, but just in summary, when you look at all the products in the work program, many of the larger scale major projects from AFDOT or other major road reconstructions might start with a study, then it might have a 2-year design for time frame, multiple years of right of way, then multiple years of construction. So you'll see that carried out in a pipeline for each project in the work program. The same could be said for some of the smaller products if they do not require right-of-way acquisition. So something like a transportation alternatives project, which is a TPA priority program, or the resurfacing, restoration, rehab of roadways. So that AFDOT delivers, those could just be design and construction. So that time frame is a little bit shorter. And so all this really, you'll see this get played out in the summary tables. So in the backup, the executive summary, which provided in your backup, has the transportation, the TPA's priority lists of major products, state roads, local initiatives, and transportation alternatives, as well as SunTrail. They're all shown in the same chart you see on the screen. It has a year and priority of its ranking, lead agency, location description, product number, and then the phases and funding associated with those projects. And so that's a little background on the format of that tip. How do we get here today? So this really starts about a year in advance. Back in winter, spring of 2023, we have product development. So we're reviewing submittals from locals. We're looking at LRTP projects and ranking and seeing if those are feasible projects to bring into our list of priority projects. That's adopted by the governing board in July. Then later on, heading into the winter, the draft tentative work program is released. So this is AFDOT's presentation on what they have based on the budget and our priorities and their priorities. And then we provide our comment on that. And then the final work program is developed by AFDOT, and that's what we build the Transportation Improvement Program off of. So what we're seeing in this Transportation Improvement Program, similar to prior tips, large amount of investment in the county when it comes to the strategic intermodal system. So AFDOT and the Turnpike continue to have large scale products that they are delivering. There's $3.63 billion total in federal and state funds in Palm Beach County. Outside of the large scale investment, which you see mostly in Turnpike for the SIS capacity projects, significant investment in major products, local initiatives, and transportation alternatives. Those are the three TPA priority programs. And then as you work your way down the list, it gets more into other projects, local products that we put in for reference purposes, and then operations and maintenance. And then one other note here is you'll see the shift from more of that state and local funds being spent towards operation and maintenance, whereas more of the capacity products are federal state. When it comes to specifically the TPA priorities, so we're talking about those state roads, major projects, local initiatives, and transportation alternatives, $367 million in the program, $210 million in roadway capacity. So that's finishing up Atlantic Avenue and State Road 7. There's $89 million in electric buses, transit vehicles, and rail vehicles for Tri-Rail. There's lighting of $14 million, intersection and traffic signals for $12 million. And then, oh, I'm sorry, I messed this one up. $40 million in transit vehicles and shelters. And I mislabeled this one on top here. That's $89 million in pedestrian bicycle improvements. So shared use pathways, complete streets, and other ped bike improvements. So going into a little bit more details on the three programs that we have, I'm just going to provide high levels on products that people probably want to have an update on. State Road 7 widening extension. This is in the tip for construction in 29 for the northern section and in 28 for the southern section. There are still pending litigation on this. Right now, the update on those, the environmental resource permit hearing is scheduled to continue at the end of May here, 20th to 30th. Once they finish with the environmental resource permit hearing, they'll then move on to the water use permit hearing. So, and it could take some time for the judge to provide their decision on that. So still looking, this year to get that decision figured out. And again, the products are in the outer years of the tip, 28, 29. Next is State Road 80 lighting. A lot of this money is actually in the current tip. So you won't see it fully funded in the tip, this upcoming tip, because most of it's already been funded. But construction has started on this one. And they also added guardrails in 2027. So that's for portions of the lighting that's close to the roadway that they need to provide that barrier. So there's also guardrails. It's a separate project that's occurring in 2027. And then Atlantic Avenue widening, again, two of the major portions of this, State Road 7 all the way to the Turnpike, is now going to be starting construction very soon here. It's in the current fiscal year, so there should be any data on those. And then the sections to the east are scheduled for fiscal year 2029. So that's going from Turnpike to Jog. And it's broken up in two projects, but it is going to be delivered together. And then other updates for the TPA priority list. You'll see a variety of products associated with the 561 multimodal corridor plan. And in here, we have the US 1 project. So we did a multimodal corridor study back in about 2018. A lot of the results of that are moving forward. We have transitional priority, which is now underway in fiscal year 24, our current tip year. Enhanced transit shelters in 26. And then there's multiple road reconstructions throughout the county. Two that are programmed for construction upcoming are in 25 and 27. And then for Okeechobee Boulevard and State Road 7, underwent a similar study, multimodal corridor study. There's transitional priority again underway in fiscal year 24. And then there's shelters in 29. And then there is the upcoming AFDOT feasibility study along Okeechobee Boulevard for transit and other considered light rail, bus rapid transit, and other enhanced transit facilities. And that's in fiscal year 25. So the upcoming fiscal year. Okay. So that covers major products and state roads. And then we have our local initiatives program and our transportation alternatives program. So upcoming products in 25 for the local initiative list is on the left. So we have 6 upcoming, Delaware, Palm Beach County, West Palm, Wellington, SFRTA, and another Wellington. And then products that are still They're on the list of priority projects list. It showed this in the draft tentative work program. It's the same for the tip here draft. These are the prioritized ones not programmed. There's 8 of those. And so when we head into this list of priority products, the next cycle, you'll see those still in that priority list and anticipated to be funded the next go around. Transportation alternatives, 4 coming up here in 2025, Palm Beach Gardens, Boca, ITID, and Wellington. And then there's the 6 new products that were added for construction in 2027. So again, this is one of those ones where there's no right of acquisition. There's smaller scale products. These typically go in the 3rd year of the program. And then it was just suggested to us from you all before to break out any projects that were in those lists that are no longer in the tip, but maybe they're still going towards procurement or are currently under construction. We made a separate list in the table for that, and we'll try to keep that updated as well. There's 7 state road major projects, 12 local initiatives, and 9 transportation alternatives projects on that list. So that's now another reference table in that executive summary packet, just to make it a little cleaner. Here's like not really a great photo for the screen, but one of the under construction projects, Lake Worth Road roundabout and pedestrian enhancements. And this was taken in February. Okay. Then high level SIS, the strategic intermodal system. As I mentioned, this is the bulk of where those funds are when it comes to new capacity. $1.7 billion in turnpike capacity, another $400 million in I-95 improvements. And so we look at those products coming up. Here's I-95 heading north to south. These are all interchanges here. And the type of interchange, if it is going to be a full reconstruction, and then where it is out in the phases. If you see any ones that were a strike through, that means that that phase has moved, and so you should see it accompanied by some other location. Sometimes these do shift around based on just priorities of FDOT and some other production needs. So lots of construction coming up on 95. And the same could be said for the turnpike. Mostly the widenings with this widenings to 8 lanes throughout the northern part, and then widening to 10 lanes in the southern portions. And construction really occurring from now all the way out into 2029 and beyond. Okay, so that's a summary for you. The full list of products is on the full document on the website. It's a large document. We also have our online map. So if you go onto our online map, it's the first layer on there, and it has all the projects. If you want to just zoom to your area, it's a little easier to navigate that way. What you all could do for us, if there's any corrections to projects, better descriptions, we really want to provide a clear document. If you have local products that are coming up the next 5 years that you want us to reference and map, we'll do that. So we'll put them in our tip for reference purposes, and we'll add them to our map. So if you just send us that list, we'll incorporate those. And then the final draft will include any of those local products for reference. We're still working through the 5-year work program for the county to be added to the map into our tip. Any updated product details, we'll get a few more of those in there, especially when it comes to our modal partners, airport, seaport, and rail. And then we actually have a new tool coming for the tip, which is exciting. It's going to be all interactive, so you're going to have a little bit easier way of navigating all this. And we're looking to keep all the construction status and phase statuses on that tool as well. So we're hoping to have that available to you all come June when you adopt this document. Okay. I can take any questions.
Thank you so much, Andrew. Are there any questions for staff at this point? We have comments from the board. Brian, go ahead.
A series of questions leading to a statement. Where exactly is on the Sun Trail, the Beach Club Way road? That's on it's the A1A from Camino or Camino Real to Beach Club Way. It's talking about the bridge.
Mhm. We put in a request to FDOT to figure out when products are being awarded. We haven't heard back yet about if Sun Trail products have been awarded. So it looks like they haven't been in this draft. So, but hopefully we have the answer for you by next time.
Okay, well, the reason I'm asking is I was trying to figure out where it was. The county, I think, just redid that bridge because they had to go through our process to get it's actually strangely enough, even though it's in Boca Raton, it's on the county's register of historic places. And where I'm getting to with all this is if there's any sort of federal funding, you have a 4F issue, which I'm sure parallels the DOT people. But yeah, 4F is a major concern. I don't know where local designations, but a lot of 4F that I recall 20 plus years ago when I was doing 4F evaluation was any designation of any type gave you the protection and you're going, and it's the right of way itself. It's not a parcel. It's the right of way that's designated for the county. I'm not trying to get in the way of it, but it's something that we might need to look at long term. And so I don't know if that's a Boca issue or whoever's actually proposing that project, but just wanted to let you know in advance that that could be a problem.
Thank you. I do know that the funding for Sun Trail is state funds. I'm not sure if that factors into how much review that requires, but we'll follow up with them.
I've not done PD&E in the state of Florida, so I don't know if there's a state version of 4F. That I did it in other states, and I know that 4F was huge under Federal Highway Administration. So
I believe the improvement is along A1A at Camino Real, not the actual Camino Real bridge portion, the A1A bridge portion. I think it goes south to South Beach Park. But I'm not 100% sure. Quan, do you recall that segment?
I'm sorry, just can we have a little bit of order? Thanks. I think Alex was
sorry.
next. So just before we start, having discussion, if we could just try to maintain. So it's fine. Thank you for clarifying, Bill, or sorry, Jim. And I'm gonna have Alex go next. Thank you.
Yeah, just a suggestion for clarity, and I think I brought it up before. As far as the table, I think it would be good whenever there's a change. So you have items in blue or green or I guess red, pink. I'm not sure what color that is. That denote some change. It may not be a bad idea again to have something indicating exactly what the change or where the item was before. So I know some changes indicate a delay in the project or a change in the timeline. Others indicate a significant funding change, but we are not sure just by looking at the table what that is. I think in the past I have suggested maybe strike through underline or something showing what the previous funding was, what the new fund compared to the new funding, something along those lines, I think would improve the clarity of the document. So it would be easier to know, okay, there was an increase of 10 million, 20 million, or a decrease. We're not even sure when it says funding change. I'm not even sure whether money was added or money was subtracted from the project, which both things can happen. So that's just a suggestion on a way to clarify the table. Also related to that, I had a question on one of the projects there, table 1 major project, and this is one that we discuss every year, the Tri-Rail extension to Jupiter. So this is the first page of table 1, page 124 of the document. It indicates that there's a significant funding change. It says for planning on fiscal year 25. So could you provide a little bit more information on what that significant funding change is? Fiscal year 25, I guess, starts July 1st of this year. So I don't know if you have any more information that you can provide on that, I guess, planning study that will be occurring over the next few months and what this funding change is.
Sure. The one you're referencing, and we've had discussions, as you mentioned, in previous meetings here, it originally said PD&E on there. And so I changed it to say PL to be more in line with what it seems like it's doing. I'll have to follow up with staff on this one a little bit more, but the background, the description of the product says transit alternative analysis to extend commuter rail service. There's no change in the amount of funding, really. It's just the sort of saying PD&E and change the plan. Helpful. Sure.
You're clarifying the category of the item, but, so I guess, will there be now a study coming up within the next 12, 14 months, on that project?
So the SFRTA, I'm sorry that they're not here today. They are studying the VA extension currently as a concept, and I believe that they have PD&E, I believe, that they've requested funding for.
But this one's saying, this is the other one.
Mhm.
So this isn't even that part. So I don't know if it's.
Yeah, so I believe that in our discussions with FDOT, we can follow up. They've decided to change the funding to a different type of funding allocation and still move forward with the study and what it would take to move forward with at least analyzing the necessary steps to moving those 5 stations forward. I don't know how the outcome would change very much, but maybe there's an identification of a different funding source or, a different strategy and framework that needs to be developed to move the coastal link forward.
The extension to the VA hospital, or is it?
That's my question.
45th Street, 13th Street, Park Ave, PJ Boulevard, Tony Penna, those are on the FEC.
So
if
you're referring to the VA line?
Yes. No, the VA line is the CSX line.
The CSX, yes.
Yes, so because the Tri-Rail South Florida Rail Corridor ends approximately at where 45th Street is, they have a little bit of track. To extend to VA, that is owned by CSX.
Right.
So when we refer to the CXX line, that's because the property is still held by CSX to get to VA. The portion that this would fund is a follow-up to the crossover that's located at approximately 36th Street that would take trains onto the FEC corridor on the eastern side of the easterly tracks. So
Alex, can you please use your microphone?
Again, I'm just trying to get some clarification as to what this study would be doing over the next year.
certainly we can reach out to DOT and see what they're hoping to get out of it. We know the circumstances hasn't changed. There's no agreement to even do a PD&E study for, even evaluating what the operations and maintenance costs would be, where the station analysis is. So we have some detail, but we can see if we can find more information out, get back to you.
All right, Alex, are you finished? Okay, I just want to make sure that Brian, you had the chance, because I know you had comments and you said you were, you had a statement, so I want to make sure you had a chance to express everything that you wanted to
Yeah,
express.
it was just more that they might have a 4F issue, but I was
Okay.
kind of waiting to see what.
Okay, thank you. And then I want to go back to Jim to make sure that you had a chance to comment on everything that you.
Yes, if Quan from our staff could, if he could confirm what I said is correct, he may not know, whatever, I just would like that.
At this moment, I don't have any updates from our staff.
Okay. Do any other board members have comments at this time? I just have a couple. I have a question for DOT and I have a couple comments. I noticed that on the DOT project on the major I-95 projects, North Lake Boulevard interchange is listed for PE in 2025. And I'm wondering what this is, because that's at the interchange of I-95 and North Lake. And we went through a whole process through this committee and ultimately approved by the governing board for modifications. And we've been monitoring the implementation of the construction of that project, and it's been continually pushed out year after year after year. So if there is additional new PE, you don't have to answer it now, but I would be interested to see if there's any proposed revisions to those improvements. Several of those improvements went through several evolutions to minimize the impacts to adjacent businesses on those ramps. And so out of all of the alternatives that were ultimately approved, everybody was very comfortable with the improvements that were ultimately approved by the governing board. So is DOT opening this issue back up? And if so, I'd like to know more information about it. I see PE in 2025.
Mike.
I don't have a project number. I'm sorry. I was just going by your
Okay.
slide. And you don't have to answer it now, Andrew, because I know this is only
Sure.
informational, but if you wouldn't mind looking into that and maybe
Yeah.
passing it along, it looks like you've got PE in 2025 and then construction in 2026.
Yeah, it looks like most of the PE has been, is in the current year. So the construction's still showing as 2026. So I can update my slide to better reflect that. But the
Well, I
product,
don't know, I don't know if it's an update on your slide or not. What I'd like to know is that why are they even doing PE? Because the PE portion of that project should be completed. Because it was completed long
Sure.
ago.
I think it might be a mistake on my end. So I
Okay.
think I see PE here. and
If
it's
you wouldn't
all
mind
in
just looking into
2024.
that and
Yep.
then you can get back to me directly on that, that would be fine. And then I have a couple, I guess another question is, so the LI programs and the projects that are slated that you presented. I just want to make sure my memory is correct. The funding for the LI was, we didn't, the TPA did not accept any LI grants this year, correct? In order to allow for funds to catch up?
Correct.
Okay. And so in general, how is the position of the LI given this gap year?
Mhm.
Is it going to be offered next year? How,
Are we-
because there's so many wonderful projects under the LI.
Yep, we have $23.7 million of additional needs. It shows right now in this table. Our allocation around LI, our allocation that typically funds LI is the SU funds, and that's around 20 million, 21 million. So you'll most likely see a good amount of these move forward as being funded next year. You'll get more information this when it comes to our list of party products when it comes to July. And so we'll have a better understanding of how it's shaken out. What we'll try to do is figure out again, see if there's ones that we can fund in other ways from this list and also the major products list. Maybe some of these, if there's any TA funds, like there's one small scale palm tram product that we can probably move to the TA list and get that funded. So we're going to work with FDOT about how we can get these funded, but I would anticipate a few of these be funded. Well, the full list of $23 million in needs, it might be tough to get to the bottom of that list.
Yes. Okay. Thank you. A couple more final comments. I noticed that this list that you created, the new construction and active under construction, I don't remember seeing that before, and I thought it was really helpful. It's really nice to know. I know we get a ton of questions once projects are approved in our jurisdiction, what's going on here or what, and so this is a really great accessible way. So if I'm mistaken and you already had this as part of your formula, forgive me, but I do like seeing that. But I would encourage everybody to look closely because you're really getting into a lot of detail in these tables and, things can be missed. And so I would just say it's incumbent upon everybody to carefully review these lists and coordinate with the staff, because when you're monitoring this amount of projects and then you're getting into active construction and partially, funded, it's really, I think it takes a village to look at the accuracy of these tables. So, and I know this committee helps a lot in that. So, that was just a comment. And then going back to the strike through suggestion, I know we've talked about this before, at the committee level here. So, there was a discussion and I think there was consensus that it would be helpful, and it was brought up again today.
Mhm.
So my question is, what does it take to show the strike through version? Because obviously I think we can all agree it's very helpful to show the changes, but what does it take in order to actually show this type of document from, before and after the strike through format? Is it a big burden or is it easily manageable?
I wouldn't say it's because obviously with all this information, it's important for us to streamline it and automate the process. I'm hoping with this new tip tool that we can provide better variance reports. We do get some variance reports from FDOT that will show that difference. They're a separate report, and so it's not in this format. I think we can definitely work towards a variance report to deliver what you want. Will it be in this table specifically? I can't promise that, That would take a little bit more work. This is a little bit more, too much manual entry, obviously, on this one. And I'd like to make this a little bit more automated as well. But yes, we can provide that in the future.
So what does a variance report look like?
So we can compare the current tip to the, whatever your draft would be. So if we're doing an amendment, like a wholesale amendment to lots of products, we can just show the differences in those. And so those will all be like flagged. And we could do the same between tips. So we could compare the 24 to 28 tip with the 25 and 29 tip.
I think that would be
By
helpful.
project.
Does that work for everybody? I know this is information, so I don't think we.
And I'll try to,
Yeah.
I'll try to incorporate into this sort of setup as much as possible. I just can't promise it's gonna be in that format yet.
Okay. Okay, I think that would be really helpful if it's possible. We don't want to overburden the time that it takes to do manual entry, but if the variance report achieves what I think we're all looking for to see what the changes are, I think that would be great. Those are all my comments. Any other final comments? Okay, so we are moving back. If are the Turnpike members here? Okay, yes, they are. I see nods. So that we are moving back to agenda item 3A for the Turnpike crossover in Martin County.
Madam Chair, for
I'm
the
sorry.
record, Joyce Kai joined the meeting at 9:27 a.m.
Okay, thank you, Ruth. This is the Turnpike crossover in Martin County. At this time, I'd like to invite Jaslyn Haywood to and Bill Howell to present this item. Thank you.
Good morning. So it's going to be myself, Jaslyn Haywood. Sorry for being late. We drove from Atlanta this morning. And if at the end of this presentation, if you have any traffic related questions, I have Andrew Velasquez here who will help me. So the project is, I'm going to go back one. Okay, maybe not. This is the clicker, right? Okay, yes, it's working. All right, so this project happens to be in Martin County. Through the presentation, you'll understand why we're in Palm Beach presenting on it, because I'm gonna say it now, it benefits the Indian Town Road, that right now drivers cross over at Indian Town between Turnpike and I-95, so we'll be removing some traffic there. So that's why we're presenting a Martin County project to Palm Beach. All right, so we're going to go over where we are in our transportation project development process. Why are we even looking at doing this project? We have, the team has come up with 2 alternatives that we will be presenting for public input, and then the schedule. So we are in the second phase. Natalie, you were asking about what PE means. PE for DOT means design, whereas PD&E, that's the phase that this project is in. So we're in PD&E, next will be design. It's called preliminary engineering, which that PE stands for right-of-way acquisition and then construction. So right now, for this project, the only thing that's funded is PD&E. I already mentioned this in Martin County. So the project area, the study area, we're looking at 2 miles southeast, 2 miles south of Southeast Bridge Road and 1 mile north, because that is the area where the turnpike, in order to make the system to system connection that we're trying to make, that is the area where we can fit in the high speed ramps that we need to fit. So the project needs, we're looking to improve system linkage, enhance safety, and enhance emergency response and evacuation. By improving the system linkage, we'll also be improving traffic operations and travel time reliability and relieving congestion on the local roadway network, as I mentioned, in Indian Town Road and up at Canner Highway. There are no direct existing connections between Florida's Turnpike and I-95. We have right here, we're showing the colors are wrong, my apologies. This slide is really supposed to show the existing Turnpike interchanges and the I-95 interchanges, and then where we're proposing to provide this new direct connection. So that's at Southeast Bridge Road. So it's halfway in between. Right now, up at Canara and down at Indian Town, the local roadway network is being used to make this connection or switch over between the 2 facilities. So by providing a direct connect interchange, that will help. This slide was just to show what drivers do nowadays. It's not direct, it's not direct. So by doing that. And this slide here shows the crashes that happen on the left-hand side. It's Turnpike. So over for a 5-year period from 2018 to 2022, it shows those crashes that amounted in, my apologies, about 109 in the economic crash cost, resulting in 4 fatalities and too many injuries. And then over in a 95, we see that almost doubling. So we are looking to enhance safety. And also by providing this direct system-to-system connection, these facilities are a critical emergency response and evacuation. So by doing this project, we'll also be enhancing that. So with those needs, what we have come up with are 2 alternatives that provide those direct connections between I-95 and Turnpike. So we're looking at the northbound to northbound connection and the southbound to southbound. So we're looking at providing 4 connections, and also emergency access roads for emergency vehicles only. And again, this would be in Martin County. Through the alternatives process, it wasn't a tiered process where we came up with alternatives. We eliminated some based on the project purpose and need. And what we came down with is 2 what we call reasonable and feasible alternatives that meet the project purpose and need that we have taken to local agency. We've already spoken to Martin County and the MPO, and now we are going through that process, and our next step will be taking it to public input. So this one slide shows the 2 alternatives. Both alternatives provide those 4 connections. The ramps provide the direct connections, high speed connections between Turnpike and I-95, northbound to northbound and southbound to southbound, and emergency access roads for emergency vehicles only. So this is the slide that we think would interest the Palm Beach staff. So the direct connect in 2050, so we forecasted out to 2050. We're forecasting that the new direct connect interchange would take about 26,400 vehicles per day in 2050. So what that means for West Indian Town Road interchange is 37% decrease at the Turnpike interchange and 16% decrease at the I-95 interchange. So the crossover traffic that will be removed is about 15,000 vehicles a day. AADT. And then up in Martin County, it's a little less of a benefit, but an 8% decrease at the Turnpike interchange, the crossover traffic removed is 3,200 AADT. So my last slide, the project schedule. So before we take anything to the public, we always present to our local agency partners first. So we're going through that process. We have to circle back with staff at Martin County and some commissioners. If that goes well, we will keep this July public meeting date. And then once that is concluded, we'll identify which of those 2 alternatives, what we call a preferred, we'll select one and take it to public hearing. So that's the presentation, and any questions?
Thank you so much, Jocelyn. Are there any committee members that have comments at this time? Alex.
Here's a question. You mentioned Martin County
Yes.
staff, and have you had any conversations with the MPO, the Martin County MPO? Have
Yes.
you taken this item to their technical advisory committee, and what feedback did you get? Was there any, what was the general feel for this?
Okay, no worries. So, yes, we presented to the TAC, CAC, I think as well, and then the board. When we got to the board, their question is, why can't access be provided from the Turnpike to Southeast Bridge? So that's why we're circling back. When we spoke about that tiered where we eliminated some alternatives and now we're down to 2, that actually was one of the alternatives that we considered. So I don't have a point. I don't think this thing points, So instead of just the system to system connection, why can't folks on Turnpike access Bridge Road? So that's their question. We have an alternative and we're gonna circle back. Other than that, they're for the project.
Okay, thank you. Jim?
So you don't have a plan that shows there would be access off of Bridge Road to the Turnpike currently? That's something that you're looking at? Is that what you're saying?
That is something that is not in this presentation, but we are presenting it back again to Martin County. There was one commissioner that wanted it, but everyone else wants to keep the small town feeling of the area and are concerned with what additional access at that area will do. And also, it's so closely spaced, it's not even, it's about 1,000 feet from the gore of the Turnpike ramps to where, sorry, of the existing I-95 ramps to Turnpike. So it's just so closely spaced that we would have to combine all those movements with the I-95. So you have a complex interchange and it can be done, but it does not really meet the benefit cost that Turnpike, that it doesn't meet Turnpike's benefit cost.
Are you planning on also meeting with Hobe Sound? I mean, because
Yes.
that road goes directly to their beach.
Exactly.
So I don't know whether they'd want that or not want that. I mean, that's could be a touchy subject either way.
Yes, we were advised by Martin County staff to present to Town of Jupiter Island. So, and that is on our calendar.
And I have one last question. What is the distance between the two interchanges currently right now? And I don't know if you already said in the
It's
presentation.
not there, but I think it's 0.2 mile. And then we're talking along Southeast Bridge, right?
Well, whatever your proposed new location is for the interchange to the Indian Town Road interchange. The distance between the
no,
two
okay, no, no, no.
interchanges
Okay, fine. Let me go back to that slide.
in miles.
Yeah, I think it's 9, but I have a slide that shows.
Is that comparable with other spacing that you have in other, because I see the
There you
the
go.
gardens one and the,
It's 9 miles and that's sufficient. Any
that's
other?
it. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, thank you, Jim. Thomas?
So we've been tracking this project and of course, as you can imagine from Jupiter's standpoint, it takes a lot of traffic off of Indian Town Road, which we do see, and we do see various incidents that occur along that road. While I know this is mostly a Martin County project, if you need any assistance from us to conduct meetings or if you want to do it in the Jupiter area, please let us know. We'd
Okay,
be
we'll do
happy
it.
to assist.
Thank you, Thomas.
Brian?
I'm going to speak as a resident of North Palm Beach County who uses Indian Town Road every day and that interchange that you're trying to help. Who do I call to indicate my support? This has been needed for decades. It's the amount of traffic that just trying to weave between the turnpike is, you've got the numbers, but I could tell you the experience of it on a daily basis is, particularly with the out of town, not familiar with the area. And I mean, just the nature of interchanges over the years and how they've been built and the uncertainty and whatnot of, it's desperately needed. The only thing I might suggest is not just a U-turn for emergency vehicles, but also to enable for those rare times you get those shutdowns, that you enable people to maybe make the bypass around or something and come down the other road. Cause I've had to do that several times when roads are shut down southbound. You have to go all the way up and do the awkward interchange shuffle up at the South Martin, whatever Southwest Martin one is. It's a real jam as an experiential thing, but also yeah, you got roped into the Martin County growth management debacle at Bridge Road if you want to do that interchange. So yeah, they've been trying to activate that for, I don't know, Kim, how long? 20 years at least? Sorry, didn't mean to draw you in, but
So this was a very energetic discussion at the Martin MPO Tech. And, there are very different approaches to growth in the region, and Martin County's is cautious. And so, I can't recall the number of times I've missed the exit at Palm City and haven't had to drive to Jupiter and been one of those people to navigate coming back. But at the same time, the growth challenges in Martin County is one of the reasons I-95 is so far west, because remember, 95 didn't go through Martin County for a very long time. So it's a little tricky. So compliments to the Turnpike for weathering the discussions, because they're not easy in Martin
Yes.
County when it comes to roadway connectivity and introducing the potential for inbound traffic at Bridge Road.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other comments from the committee? Yes, Quan.
The number looks pretty interesting. It's win-win, you know, everything's gonna be a decreasing trend. So I was wondering, by having this direct connection in place, because you know I-95 and Turnpike runs pretty parallel along this area. They are more like competing routes. So having this connection in place, are we expecting more traffic going from Turnpike to I-95 or vice versa? Or by how much? What's the range?
I'm gonna have Andrew help me with this question, please.
Hi, Andrew Velasquez, AECom Turnpike Planning Office. First thing we want to point out is when we looked at this interchange, you know, this is a 2050 improvement project. The assumption is that you're going to have some sort of capacity on both I-95 and Turnpike at, you know, at some point in the future to help with this exchange. We do see we were shown that the Turnpike is looking at widening north of Indiantown Road. And then on I-95, there's future plans to improve that as well. So that is kind of a necessity to make sure everything functions appropriately. But to answer your question, you know, there's an exchange of traffic. So some traffic is diverted from I-95 to Turnpike, some traffic is diverted from Turnpike to I-95. So it's kind of a wash. We see a little bit of an increase on I-95, but nothing major.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Quan. All right, thank you very much, staff, for presenting that. Just bear with me. Okay, so we already went over 3B. And now we are on item 3C, the LRTP funding review. So at this time, I would like to invite Nathan to present this item.
As promised, this is a pretty long agenda, so.
And just no, sorry, Nathan, to interrupt, but I do want to mention to the committee that agenda item 3D will be deferred, which is the tactical urbanism presentation by Win Dang. She will be coming back next month to present that. So I'll bring it up officially, but just so everybody's forecasting their time for the discussion on this item. Thank you.
So thank you for that clarification. This will be the final major item that we have for today's meeting. We're here today to talk about our revenue forecast. In the agenda backup, you got a multi-page summary that we're going to give you a brief presentation, but I would encourage everybody on this committee to take a look at that. It walks through the revenue projections for our 2050 LRTP, what we're calling Vision 2050. And so I'll go ahead and dive in. So just a reminder for everybody, as we're talking about regional transportation needs, we are talking about the regional transportation network. So we do like to continually remind everybody that we are talking about the green lines on this map, our major roadways, the interstates, the state highways, major county roads, collectors, that sort of thing. So all the roads in green is where we're focusing your attention. You'll hear that from me as we talk about projects, but just want to reinforce that that's where the majority of our funding is directed. We can direct funds where it supports this network, but want to issue that reminder to everybody. As a reminder, I'm sure most of you who have been involved with TPA understand where our funding sources come from and how they get allocated. The primary focus today, we're going to talk about TPA, but we will give you highlights for other funding sources. And so our funding sources are those federal formula funds that come into our region, so the Federal Highway Trust Fund. We also have state transportation trust fund dollars that come into the region. So that's fuel taxes, cars, stamps, things like that. And then we have our local taxes, which are made up of fuel taxes again, road impact fees, our ad valorem, and our infrastructure surtax, which is sunsetting. So we have these variety of funding sources that come into the region. There have been some shifts from the 2045 to the 2050 projections. We're going to highlight that for you, but just a reminder of where those funding sources come from. In terms of funding categories, how we allocate the dollars that are coming into the region, we have a variety of different sources that are highlighted in the document. I'm going to walk through each of those. Again, I'm not going to give you a lot of detail on those. I would encourage you to if you're interested, look at the resource itself to understand what these mean. The number one, the area that we're going to focus the majority of our detail on is the TPA programs. It's already been mentioned here today at the meeting, interest in the local initiatives, our major projects or state road modifications and transportation alternatives. Those are the revenue sources that drive our appropriations as the TPA and where we direct dollars in our region. Then FDOT has two major funding sources or funding revenues that go into their funding programs, the strategic intermodal system. So this is our I-95, State Route 80, the ports, our aviation and seaport facilities that fund improvements, capacity increases to support travel in those modes, support our freight, support travel and tourism. And then there's also FDOT's maintenance programs, the District 4 Operation and Maintenance, which covers resurfacing program or state of good repair, bridges, operations, and general maintenance in our transportation system. In the document, you'll also see some highlights from our discretionary funding programs. In terms of how that's considered in our long-range transportation plan, these are illustrative. We understand that we could receive some funding out of these sources, but they're not something that we can assume we're going to receive because it is discretionary. It's as those funds are awarded. The state has a number of those funding programs. SunTrail came up a little bit earlier. We have state transit new starts that support enhancement of transit in our region and operations. We have our district sources and like TRIP. Did want to mention that one of the projects that was mentioned earlier was put in for TRIP. The extension to VA was a nominated TRIP project. So that's another source where we regionally prioritize projects through CEFTEC. And then our federal discretionary, that's everything that we've reminded you. Go to the DOT Navigator if you're interested in those funding sources, how to secure them, what are the requirements. DOT Navigator tells you about all those, but that's the Tiger, Build, Raise, and programs like that that are really inject huge amounts of capital into a region, make major transit investments like through small starts, new starts. So those are really transformative improvements when they're awarded. We've highlighted some of those for you as they've been awarded to our region. And then our local programs, this is something that we reflect in our plans, but we do not prioritize. It's just an acknowledgement. These are major regionally significant transportation investments being made in the region. The TPA doesn't have authority to tell you how to spend your dollars, but we do want to reflect those investments that you are making. So you get credit for the hard work that you're doing as local municipalities or transportation providers in our region. So that includes everybody from the county all the way to our local municipalities, the ports, as I mentioned earlier, signal timing and operations. A lot of very beneficial enhancements can be made through these local programs, and we just acknowledge those in the plan. So as I said, the main detail here is to talk about that TPA prioritization, where we are allocating our dollars, what is available for us to prioritize as we're considering the 2050 plan. And so we have these number of sources, our typical LI and state road modifications and our TA or transportation alternative programs make up over this 20-year planning horizon. We're showing the 21 years of forecast, $872 million that our agency has the opportunity to put forward what we hope to achieve in this region with that $872 million. That works out to about $41.5 million per year that this agency is directing those funds. I will tell you that the bad news is that these funds are a little bit smaller than what we had before, so I'll highlight that for you in just a moment. But this is what's available to us as we start talking about the projects that you've submitted, the projects that we want to try and prioritize through those funding programs. And it's broken down into all the funding sources there. I will not walk through, but just to give you the actual federal and state sources where those dollars come from. So the bad news is that we are seeing lower revenue projection. And again, these are forecasts, so these are not actuals, but lower projection than what we presented 5 years ago when we were working on the 2045 LRTP. So 2045 forecast was 1.28 billion over 21 years, and we're looking at 872 million over 21 years, 5 years later. There are a number of reasons for that. There are adjustments in our state. Our region is not growing at the same rate as other areas. These are urban area forecasts and projections. So other urban areas have emerged, have received funding based on their regional share among our state. So some of that funding is being allocated elsewhere within the state of Florida. There are also economic factors that influence projected incomes that would come into the state and then be passed down to the municipality or to the MPOs to distribute in these urbanized regions. So there are a number of reasons that FDOT has just maybe throttled the amount of revenue that they project our region to take in. And we do want to make that acknowledgement because it's really, it's just a limitation in how much funding we project and what we can do with those dollars. But those will adjust again over time as we see economic headwinds or tailwinds. And it's just an acknowledgement, so we make sure that this document is fiscally balanced. We want to highlight for you in preparation for conversations we're going to have about projects and what gets in and what does not, what that means. So as projects get incorporated into the plan, as we include those in the cost feasible or as an illustrative project demonstrating support, that just means that we approve of those projects to be allocated state and federal dollars. If we don't include a project in the plan, if we leave it out, it would be potentially referenced if a locality is going to pursue that project. They could still administer that through local funds, but the TPA would be saying with that exclusion from our plan, we do not support allocating state and federal dollars to it. So as we start talking about what it means for a project to be in, if we want to allocate federal or state dollars to it, if it's out, you can still pay for it with your own dollars or with some discretionary source, but the TPA wouldn't be supporting pursuing that project with those dollars. Want to highlight for you another preview as we're talking about how all of this stuff comes together into the LRTP. So the transportation priorities that we included or inject into our plan, how they get into the cost feasible plan. The long range transportation plan primarily in 2045 included our line items for state road modifications, local initiatives, transportation alternatives, and then those projects were coming into our plans through an annual funding program call for projects, if you will. So annually, the TPA would issue a call for local initiatives or state road modifications. And then based on qualitative, quantitative scoring, discussions with you, those projects would get prioritized in the list of priority projects. And then as they were funded into the TIP, they were sort of amended into the LRTP by virtue of the fact that they draw down on those funds when they make their way into the TIP. But that doesn't acknowledge them as a priority in the long range transportation plan. It's one of the challenges that I'm trying to work on the 2050 plan, presenting the projects in the plan so it's more transparent what we're trying to do in our region. It's tied to our goals and objectives. Basically, we're trying to develop a data-driven plan. So for 2050, our transportation priorities, we've went out to you with a call for projects. We've received those and staff has preliminarily at least identified what are projects that could be funded. We have feasibility and level of commitment, engagement with the public to ensure that a project is actually achievable. Those are things that we can actually itemize and allocate funds to in a long range transportation plan. And then things that maybe we don't have that level of certainty that a project is a project, the fact that a project can actually be completed, if you will, or feasibility. Those are things that we might be able to include in the plan, but not say we're going to commit the dollars to it yet. We need to do some additional work, put a little more meat on the bone. So that's where it's my proposal, we'll include a list of studies. That list of studies will allow us to allocate funds to demonstrate that those projects are feasible, to get them to the point where we can incorporate them in as a project that can be part of our amendments to the LRTP. So that's how we're approaching how projects will go into the LRTP. That's why you don't see state road modifications and local initiatives being an annual call. they come directly into this program. We can amend requests in annually. And that's in my view, a much more transparent way for us to include projects, but we're bypassing the list of priority projects, getting that in earlier where it's documented in the LRTP itself. We will still have the transportation alternatives as an annual call. That's just the typical process. It's something that would be very administratively burdensome for us to say you have to do your transportation alternatives in the LRTP. I can't think of anybody, any MPOs who do that, but that will still be an annual program that we incorporate through the list of priority projects. Same thing would be true for the Sun Trail network. Reminder of the timeline. So we've closed out effectively the needs assessment. We're working with all the localities to get clarifications on your projects and details. We want to make sure that we bring in new ideas if there are any, but we're kind of at the point now where any new ideas would really just be brought in for inclusion as like a future need for consideration. It's not something we can really vet unless it's incredibly major, something that's going to be transformative for this region. So we really have on the table what we can include for funding in this 2050 LRTP, but that doesn't mean don't continue to share new project ideas with us. Please continue those conversations. But we're shifting now into the scenario planning and actually building the program and allocating the funds. So that's where we're getting into the summer, developing the scenario planning, working with our regional partners to the south, developing our budget, and then working towards our December adoption of this document. Want to give everybody a save the date. So later this month, May 23rd, we're going to have a conversation about projects and programming. This is where we're going to talk about the projects that are in the plan, how that chart that I showed a minute ago, how things filter out from the call for projects into what we can consider for funding, what we need to consider funding for studies, what may not be something that we could actually fund. There are some things that don't meet that regionally significant tests. So those will be discussed with you as well. But on May 23rd, we'll be having our first big discussion about how revenues and these projects start to come together to inform a program that's going to go into the LRTP. We'll have an in-person meeting at 10 o'clock here in this room, and then we'll hold a virtual from 3:30 to 4:30 that will be recorded for on demand. So if anybody can't make those times, they'll be able to engage in the process there. That concludes the presentation. Took a little tangent to talk about things to come, but I would encourage everybody to review this document. Let me know if you have any questions because it is pretty technical. I do have some comments of my own, so staff will be working to get a few details clarified as well, but definitely encourage you to review the document and let us know if you have any questions.
Thank you, Nathan. Staff, are there any public comments on this item?
No, Madam Chair.
Khursheed.
Thank you, Nathan. Excellent presentation. A lot of questions got answered. I just want to read on the record a new and improved
I'm sorry, can you please state your name and your address before you make your public
Rashid
comment?
Mahyuddin with Palm Beach County Planning Division at 2300 North Jog Road, West Palm Beach. Chapter 163, 3177, 5A requirement. Each local government comprehensive plan must include at least 2 planning periods, one covering at least the first 10-year period occurring after the plan's adoption, and one covering at least a 20-year period. So what it is referring to actually is that a lot of local governments in our area would be doing what is called EAR, evaluation and appraisal report, that we send to the state, that our comprehensive plans are in line with the latest statutory requirements. So and I was very excited to see that all the revenues are broken into 5-year increments. By the way, I didn't see the 2045 part in there, but also the cost, we will definitely, as part of the long-range transportation plan, I would expect that we have the cost feasible plans for those interim years. And that way, the local governments who utilize the outcome of the long-range transportation plan interim years, they can include that and utilize that towards their, to fulfill the requirements of their comprehensive plans. That is all my comment. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you, Khursheed. Denise?
Thank you, Natalie. Thank you for the overview. Appreciate that. We've spoken on a few occasions. I just wanted to ask you from the meeting that we last had, the city had provided our input to the call for projects. That wasn't reflected on the map, and afterwards Palm Springs also included what we did for the Lake Worth corridor. I just wanted to have some verification that going forward, indeed, that has been changed to reflect the record of us submitting that. And where do we go from here as far as the timing of that? Now that the call for projects has been closed out, the meetings have been had, and you're going on to the next step.
Certainly. So I can confirm that your project submission has been included. We're going to carry forward both project submissions, yours and the Village of Palm Springs, for transparency's sake.
Okay.
And I believe your project submission would be probably the more scaled and appropriate to carry forward for consideration.
Okay.
Just for everybody's understanding, so we had over 650 projects that came in through the call for projects. It's been a very extensive effort to get all of that data cleaned up and prepared so we can present it to you. There's an experience builder online that it's posted on the website. If you go to the LRTP page, click on our map, it will take you to an experience builder that reflects all the projects that were submitted. Everything that's, we'll call it under funding consideration, is presented on the map by default. There's a lot of things that are filtered out. We have the database is built out comprehensively to include list of priority projects, 2045 projects, and then everything that was submitted. And then we've gone through a reconciliation process to screen out things that you don't need to focus your attention on. It's still there for transparency, make sure that, we have all the projects recorded and it's nothing gets lost, if you will. The meeting that we're going to have on the 23rd is to go through a discussion of here's what we're seeing in terms of projects and how they're aligning with our goals and objectives, how they may align with our needs in the region. And to have that first dialogue of, here are the projects that we're seeing as priorities to consider for funding. We're going to continue to then have conversations about programming as we get into the summer. So everybody should definitely be at these meetings and engaging as we have offline meetings to inject your values and opinions into those discussions as we start programming projects. I will say, it's my personal view, we'll probably see a lot of our projects, or a lot of the submissions will fall into more of a studies category where they're just not ready to be programmed for, saying this is cost feasible and we need to do it, because there's still a lot of checks that have not been checked off. And so it's my view that we'll probably see a lot of those projects that we've received suggest we need to do some study, and we can discuss how that's going to happen so we can get a lot more work done here in our region. But where we see projects that do have really great alignment that we can put into the cost feasible plan, we'll do that. We're also going to be looking for illustrative project needs to establish what those, how those dollars could be allocated if they come into the region. So with that reduction, kind of to get back on topic, with the reduction in projected revenues, including illustrative projects is a way that we can say, we would do this if there were more revenues, and then go after discretionary. So pairing projects with those discretionary sources, making sure that they're ready to go for those discretionary sources with the, propping them up with the appropriate planning. That's another way we're trying to take this plan and use it to accelerate investment in our region for like really transformative regional projects.
Okay, thank you
Thanks.
for acknowledging that, and we look forward to going forward with
And
it.
I just borrowed the time to offer the additional guidance or insights for everybody's consideration. Thanks for that.
Okay, thank you. Next is Alex.
You mentioned the projects that are reflected online and that GIS tool that was prepared. I noticed that there seemed to be projects within the boundaries of the city of West Palm Beach that were submitted by other agencies, county in this case. And I don't believe those projects have been discussed with the city. So just procedurally, what would be the process for something like that? I mean, so if the county submits a project on a county road, but that it is within a municipality, what would be then the process for ensuring that that municipality where that project is located has a say on that respective project before it is included into the document.
Okay, so this gets to the follow-up on the call for projects. That's an ongoing process. I've spoken with a number of you. We're still continuing to engage. We actually sent out a bunch of emails to folks who didn't submit. And what we're doing is we're taking every project that was received, every project within your jurisdiction that we received, so things that you didn't submit, and then anything that's in the prior plans, and distributing those project details to everybody. It's a one-page summary sheet that this is a project record that we have in your jurisdiction. Here you go. And it's divided into your submissions by others, and existing plan projects. That's your opportunity to see what's been proposed. So we want to make sure that consultative process and transparency is there, that you understand not only our feedback on what you submitted, but also what else has been proposed in your jurisdiction. I will tell you from a West Palm Beach and Palm Beach County perspective, I'll use this as a highlight. The proposal to reconstruct the Australian and Okeechobee interchange was proposed by the county as a reconstruct. The city proposed to remove that and make it an at-grade intersection. That says I've got two conflicting ideas for the same location from two different stakeholders. So as a planning agency, it's our duty to say, we can't fund one or both projects. They're in direct conflict. It identifies a need for planning, kind of exactly what I was saying earlier. And that allows us to elevate that priority to say, we need to figure this out before we allocate funds to it. Let's go ahead and do a study. If it's not already included in one of our existing studies, because we have studied Okeechobee to death, right? So that's the kind of feedback we want to hear as we're consulting with all of you. Tell us what your feedback is on the proposals that were by others in your jurisdiction. Raise objection if it's necessary, or demonstrate your support. We'll consolidate all that as we're talking about projects and suggest, who supported, who did not support. That's also, the Experience Builder was built for public input, so it allows folks to say, I support a project or I don't. There's a voting feature. So we can get a sense for public support of projects or comments, if there are any, and that allows us to shape proposals, ensure that we're carrying forward projects that do have support, or pressing pause and going back and re-exploring the purpose and need and proposed scope, so that that project is something that we can achieve, because we all know if a project's not scoped and you're not proposing the appropriate interventions, it becomes that much more of a roadblock to keep pushing forward a bad idea. Let's try and figure out how we can put forward the best idea. So that's what we're going to be talking about over the next 2 months, call it, trying to get all of our projects to be perfect.
Yes, I have a similar comment to Alex's. Yes, we also have projects in the city of Boca Raton that are showing up from FDOT and Palm Beach County that some we may be aware of, some not. So hopefully, as you said, that those issues can be discussed when you pull those out and separate them out and stuff like you said you would. But there's quite a few in Boca that seem to be some older projects from the county that are still showing up on the map. I was wondering, I know you and I are going to have a follow-up discussion. I was wondering when that map would be cleaned up to take at least those off, or is that something that will also be addressed? Because those seem to be more cleanup items.
Yeah, we'll have to talk about the specific projects. Well, the process we'll be working on is, like I said, this is about transparency. So we're going to make sure that by the time we get to December, when we adopt this plan, we'll be reflecting what's in the plan that is funded or illustrative, or, any of the ideas that are going to be carried forward. And as much as possible, we'll take bad ideas, not bad, but things that need to go away. We'll make sure that they're clarified and then filtered out. So our plan reflects what's proposed and supported. Things that aren't supported or require further study, kind of filter through that. But the goal is that by the time we get to the end, we'll have a very clean database of project records that reflects what is actually planned and supported within this plan. The things that are not will still be there, but they'll be recorded differently, just to make sure that it reduces clutter. And we'll have to talk about projects that are old or seem like they need to be.
Yeah, it's just kind of bad if they still show up on the map. I mean, because that map's public record. And then, that could be presented at a public hearing, and then you're having these discussions, and it's, I think there has to be some clarification on that. Yeah,
the key is going to be looking at the project identifier. So if it's, if a project identifier says 2045 dash, it's an old record, and maybe those are things that, you know, are in the LRTP and still just hanging around. All the counties' projects are plugged in as 2045 county. I think it's 2045 dash PVC with a 4-digit or 3-digit number that correlates with our LRTP. Those are local priorities, so some of that may just be cleanup.
Okay, thank you, Jim. Any other comments from any of the committee members? Just a couple quick remarks. I had the opportunity to meet with Nathan, as I'm sure many of you have, to review the projects, and just my compliments to the time that staff has taken, Nathan, you and whoever has helped map literally all of these projects that have been submitted for the 2055. I can't imagine the time that's been put into that, but it's to my recollection, the first time that we've done this, and it's been very helpful, if nothing else, just to see visually what has been proposed. So for those who haven't had the chance to meet, we found it really helpful. There's you know, literally on a GIS layer, all the projects that have been submitted. Couldn't help but to notice the surtax reference that you had in your presentation. And I just want to emphasize my the importance of being able to keep that discussion going for Palm Beach County. You know, we're at a clear disadvantage here in Palm Beach County because we don't have the surtax. Miami and Broward have been able to leverage so many federal dollars, and you know, I know that that percentage decreased. I think that you said that it's state dollars, the 32% decrease, state dollars more or less. But, you know, there's so many federal dollars out there that could be leveraged if this county was positioned to have a transportation surtax. So I know there's some discussion, some momentum happening in this county, but I just want to underscore the importance and my support for having a surtax in place to be able to fund future mobility projects, transportation projects, and most importantly, leverage those federal dollars from a consistent source of revenue in Palm Beach County. So, you know, just really whatever we can do to help advance that discussion and advocacy, I think is really important. Those are all my comments. So this is just an informational item. So we're moving on to item 3D. So this was scheduled. Staff, I don't know if we need an official motion to defer this to the next meeting. Yes, we do. All right. So Win Dang was going to present this. She's the founder of DDEC, but she had a conflict today. So may I please have a motion to defer this item to the next agenda in June?
Motion.
Motion by Jim, second. Second by Kim. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. All right, so this item will be moved to the next agenda item. So before I move on to our last section of the agenda, which is administrative, I would like to go back to some of the comments that were mentioned at the beginning of the meeting in terms of the time start. All right, so for I see that. So I know we had our, you know, there was action that was taken last year, which struck down the notion, but there is opportunity for the board to revisit this item. So I am going to open this up for a discussion and then ultimately a vote to have the meeting start at a 9:30 start time. I know recently the governing board voted to start at 9:30. So if this committee agrees, there is opportunity. So I at least want to provide that opportunity for this committee. So first of all, before we move on to that, is there any discussion on the item?
Sorry, are you asking for the vote for this meeting, or are you gonna ask for the vote to be scheduled for an upcoming meeting? Since this was not part of the agenda, I'm just wondering procedurally.
I was
whether-
hoping now, and let's just get it done and over with. I don't think we need to schedule it.
But this will be an action of the committee, so just procedurally, I have a little bit of a question as to whether we can.
Staff, do we need to have a motion to officially add this as an action item, or are we okay proceeding?
If we can have a motion, please.
So moved.
All right, motion by Terrence. Is there a second? Second by Jonathan.
Can we just get clarity on what motion was just made? Because we do want it as an action item for the next meeting, please.
No, it's an action item for this meeting.
The
For
action,
amending the agenda to add the consideration of a 9:30 start time to this agenda.
That's correct. That's what I understand. We're adding that agenda item for action today.
Thank you.
Good. Okay, motion second passes. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, so we have the item on the agenda. Is there any discussion on this?
Yes.
Yes, Terrence.
So, and this will be a question to staff. The last time this subject came up, I believe there was a meeting soon after this meeting that if we moved to 9:30, it would also push that meeting back, which got into there was a cascading series of reasons why pushing it back to 9:30 was a problem. Is there any, from the staff's perspective, reason pushing it back to 9:30 will then push back your next series of meetings of the day and create that same issue or problem with the scheduling with other subcommittees that occur today or this day?
So long as the committee can commit to ending at a reasonable time, there shouldn't be an issue with our agenda. I think our chair's done a wonderful job at moving the meetings along and ensuring that we end so that everybody can catch a break. We do have a second committee that we have to break down, and setting up and taking down takes about an hour. And then our staff are required to take an hour lunch break. So that being said, if we're adjourning at 11 o'clock, we have a 11 o'clock breakdown lunch. That means that we can likely get CAC underway and done well. But we just don't want to impact the rest of the day for the CAC or the ability for staff to reasonably, have lunch before that time. So that's the main consideration, is if we can make sure that we're wrapping up the meeting by, I want to say 11:30, then we should be okay.
Thank you. Are there any other comments before? Yes, Alex.
Just to speak for those who may not be in favor of 9:30 start, at least I speak for me. Two concerns. One, again, if we start later, the meeting will be ending later. So most of the morning will now be occupied by this meeting. And some of us may have other meetings later in the morning that now would be affected. The other, I guess, question seems like the concern is people not being able to make it in time for 9 o'clock. I assume most of us start work at 8 or 8:30 at our so I'm a little bit uncertain if people are arriving at 8 or 8:30 at their work. I'm not sure why it's so difficult to make it at 9 o'clock to this meeting. People can just come in directly. So just putting it out there. And again, the bigger concern is now a later end of this meeting, and then how that affects the schedule for many of us on a Wednesday morning and even Wednesday afternoon.
May I?
I'm
Oh,
sorry,
sorry.
but Jonathan, I'm going to acknowledge him. He was first. Jonathan.
For me specifically, coming from Westlake, so I'm fighting the school traffic on Seminole Pratt. It's not very easy to get around. And then I'm fighting the West Palm traffic coming in. To be here at 9 o'clock, it literally takes me over an hour to get here. If it was 9:30, it would be like 38 minutes. So in my case, it would drastically be improved if I could come at 9:30 rather than not. Okay. So.
Great. Thank you.
Terrence. To a couple of Alex's points, I don't think it's fair to assume that everybody starts work at 8 or 8:30, because I don't. I've got a 12-year-old to get dropped off at a bus stop at 12:15 in Wellington. I'm not 8:15 in Wellington. So it's 20 minutes to get from Wellington to I-95. It's 25 minutes to get to I-95 to that parking garage. That's the reality. It is. So, and as I made the point, and if you've been here a while, there are a significant number of people who are not here at 9 o'clock when this meeting starts. So that is sort of the point. Yes, we all have meetings. We all have days. There's 10 meetings a year. This is 10 meetings a year. So sliding your other meetings, especially when you know it's the first Wednesday, is not that difficult to push a meeting back till 11 or 12 or 1 on the first Wednesday of each month.
Okay, thank you, Terrence, excuse me, Thomas.
So
And just
Okay,
to,
Thomas.
yeah, just to echo some of Alex's, and it's not that if I had the ability to move some of the meetings that I have, I would. But there's a few that are set by the town manager that I can't slide. And if this meeting does get out earlier, I do my best to make it there. I just, for that reason, if I could slide some of the meetings that I do have in the morning, sometimes I would, but that just, so I'm gonna go ahead and state that it's not that I wouldn't be willing to move it, but there are a few that I can't do. So that would be a nay for me just ahead of time.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments? Terrence, you were done, right? Okay, so we may want to do a roll call vote for this, just to make sure we have clarity, staff.
So we have a motion to add this as an agenda item, but we'll need another motion making the official change, and then you can have a second and then we can do a roll call.
I thought we did. I thought we had a motion and a second and a vote to add it as a.
Now we have to do it.
Correct.
Right, yes. Okay, so that's, yeah, so sorry, excuse me, my bad. So we do need a motion to actually make the change. So may I please have a motion?
So moved.
All right, and just for everybody's clarification, that is to modify the start time, the regular start time from 9 o'clock to 9:30. At a regular standing meeting. Motion by Terrence, second by Jonathan. John Paul, I'm so sorry. Sorry, John Paul. Okay, so staff, now is the roll call.
Jim Bell,
No.
Naresh Machavaropu. Alternate. Jason Kaufman,
No.
Denise Malone,
Yes.
Jamie Brown,
Yes.
Terrence Bailey,
Yes.
John Paul O'Connor,
Yes.
Alex Hansen,
No.
Kenny Wilson,
No.
Brian Davis,
Present.
So.
No.
Josh Nagel,
No.
Aaron Hoffman. Oh, I'm sorry, he's excused. Joyce Kai, Thomas Hernandez,
No.
Anders Vian,
No.
Kim Delaney,
Yes.
Christopher Marsh,
Yes.
Jonathan Rainsvold, Natalie Crowley,
Yes.
Melissa Ackert,
No.
nine yes. We have 10 voted no and 9 voted yes.
Palm Springs didn't vote.
Okay, so.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Felipe, you did not vote? I didn't call your name?
No, my name was not called. My vote's yes.
Your vote's yes?
Oh, it's a tie.
For Terrence. And do it for Terrence.
So what happens now, staff, when we have a tie?
I've been advised when this occurred.
I'm sorry, Brian,
TV.
go ahead.
All right, so we've been advised if this happens, we can take another vote. If that doesn't happen, then we will flip a coin and, we can say that.
Sorry, but
We've been advised by our attorney that's had to,
Yes. I
go in
remember when we've
circumstances.
had a tie
Where there's a
vote.
tie vote and it's an impasse of a committee, like we have to do a coin flip. So
Mhm.
I don't know if you would like to do a recall or if you would do.
Okay, so we could proceed with it. We could proceed with that, or another alternative potentially could be to bring this item back at the June meeting when everybody has had the chance to evaluate conflicts and schedule. That could be another alternative, and we can take another vote. There might be conflicts or certain board members that your alternates may
Yeah.
have the opportunity to chime in on if there are conflicts. So if it's the will of this committee, we could officially schedule this action item for next month as an alternative, or we could proceed and vote again. Jim?
Yeah, I just have a question. So today, the city engineer was not here, his alternate was here.
Mhm.
I'm not quite sure what my city, so does the same person have to vote again? Because next week,
Yep.
next month,
Can be a different person. And you are able to deliberate between.
so the
your-
vote could come
For
out
your
differently.
representative and the alternate on this item. You're not allowed to deliberate against one another. That would be a violation of sunshine, but you internally with Boca Raton can talk to your peer alternate and make a decision on it. And then either one of you could come back and vote.
Okay,
doesn't
wait, but
matter
what
if-
you just said today was like in the case that my alternate would have voted differently, we weren't allowed to do that. We would have had to say the
The-
same.
You theoretically, what should happen is regardless of if you are the primary or alternate representative, you should be making the same vote as a representative of the city of Boca Raton. So if that's not the case and you're unclear, maybe you take this item back to your alternates for your respective seats and come back with clarity on how you would like the TPA to proceed with scheduling the future meetings.
Okay, Jamie?
Would the maker of the motion be amenable to changing the time from 9:30 to 9:15? A little compromise.
Yes, I could concede compromise.
I think that would help out a lot. I mean, me personally, I was at a commission meeting till after 10 o'clock last night, and I already did a Parkland drop off this morning for my children. So a little bit of extra time would have been really appreciated. I think that might be something that might be amenable to more people if we just do like a little 15-minute instead of a 30. Just to
Thank you, Jamie. Jonathan, did you have any comments?
Are we still open for discussion? Can we discuss still since we're revoting or no?
Until such a motion is actually on the table, I think we still are in discussion. So go ahead, Jonathan.
Okay. So personally, and I know this doesn't apply to everyone in the room, but I have school drop off. That school drop off happens to be very far from here. In order to get here on time, I have to make arrangements with my significant other. She has to miss work, her first couple hours of work to actually allow me to be here on time. So if we moved to 9:30, that wouldn't happen anymore. That would certainly help me. And I noticed around the room that those furthest away voted to move it and those closest voted to keep it. So help a brother out, I guess. I don't know what to say. It's hard to get here. And this is the TPA, guys. This is a TPA. We're talking about traffic all the time here. And we're talking about school zones. So any help would be nice, is what I'm saying. So not to get animated, but it seems like a no-brainer to everyone in the room to help a committee come together as one at a specific time instead of being, no offense, curmudgeons and saying, no, it must be 9 o'clock. Okay? So if anybody can change their vote, I'd appreciate it. If not, then I'll just continue to be late.
Okay, thank you, Jonathan. Any other comments? Okay. All right, so is there there was some discussion from Jamie on and some expression from Terrence of a willingness to provide another.
Yeah, I rescind that after that passionate decree of equity. I would, although, like to entertain us postponing this to the next meeting. So there are people missing. Let everybody get their fair shot at weighing in. I know there's some entities that may or may not be represented today, alternatives. So please go back to your organizations and see if whoever's in charge can slide your next meeting back 30 minutes so that we might be able to consider this change at the next regularly scheduled meeting.
Okay. Does there seem to be consensus from the group that we push this then as an official action item to the next meeting for a 9:30 start? Okay, so then at the next meeting, this will be under action item for an official vote. Please talk to your organization. Thank you, Terrence. And just to talk it out with your own individuals who represent your own jurisdiction. Okay. Thank you for indulging me on that. And so we are moving on to administrative items. 4A, 4C are informational only. There's no staff presentations unless requested by a committee member. Are there any public comment at this time?
No, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you. Our next TAC meeting is scheduled for June 5th. And at this time, our committee is adjourned.